The wait is over for pre-orders of the Alien Colonial Marines Operations Manual. Yesterday, Freely Publishing sent out the PDF copy of the Colonial Marines Operations Manual to those that pre-ordered. People have been chomping at the bit to take a look at this. We're so excited to finally share it with folks that would like to add more to their Alien RPG sessions. Before we start, though, I would ask that if you are a fan of the Alien RPG and all things that Freely does, please hit that like button down below. And also, if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button, that little bell notification that'll let you know every single time we go live and upload new content. We're excited. Tonight, we are going to be joined by Andrew E.C. Gaska, the lead writer of also the core rulebook, pretty much almost all the supplements, I think, is so far for the Alien RPG, as well as the Colonial Marines Operations Manual. And we're going to answer your questions, talk a little bit about the book, and we're just going to chat with Andrew for a bit here. I guess he was just on here live. Let's see if he can... I think I just lost him. We're having a little technical difficulties. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Looks like we've got quite a few folks in the chat. Patty says, was there meant to be a PDF art book released, or am I mistaken? No, there is a PDF art book to be released if you pre-ordered it, and I'm sure that will be sent to you here shortly once that's all finalized. The man, the myth, the legend, the one and only Andrew E.C. Gaska.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, wow, that was interesting. While I was waiting, my computer rebooted itself.
Wow, wow. It's a conspiracy event.
Yes. So,
Andrew, thank you so much for... Yeah, thanks for hopping on and talking with the folks that are excited about this new product from Freely Publishing. You're the lead writer for the Alien RPG, award-winning author and writer of the Alien RPG. You've done how many supplements now for this game?
Core book, starter set, destroyer, chariot, and Colonial Marines. So this is the fifth book.
This is great. Yeah. We all the pre-order folks got the copy of the PDF. I don't know if anybody's taken a look at it. I think there's quite a few people that probably have. There might be one or two. I'm not sure. This book is amazing, Andrew. Let me just start off the bat. Just say this is one of the best source books, RPG source books that I've ever written. I've ever read. Like it blew my mind as soon as I was reading this, and I know folks have been anxious for this to come out. It was a little delayed, and folks we were waiting on the approval for to kind of send it out to those that pre-ordered. I would be surprised that folks wouldn't agree that it was definitely worth the wait.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. I mean, there's two reasons for the delay. One was, in the end, they're both completely my fault, actually. I was supposed to do a 200-page book. I wrote a 350-page book. They decided, God damn it, and they printed it. So we had more material that had to be go through, and then the approval process has changed over at 20th Century, moving things into Disney. This was our first round of stuff that was completely Disney instead of overseen by Disney. So, it was a new thing for them to have to deal with. What's this 400-page book game? So it was a new experience, but in the end, I hope everybody enjoys it. The approvals actually went smoothly once they got through everything with Disney, and I'm very happy with the result of the book. I hope everybody else is.
It's gorgeous. I'm going to share the screen and just give folks a little bit of an idea. If you haven't, and I will remind folks that if you haven't already pre-ordered this book, you go to alien-rpg.com and you can pre-order it still. We don't have an exact release date for it yet at retail, but you can still pre-order a copy, and you'll get the PDF copy as soon as shortly after. I shouldn't say as soon as that, but man, this this book right here, was it 352 pages?
Something like that. Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. We got some great art in this book too.
Amazing art. You've got just kind of an overview. I forget how many chapters in total.
There's 10 chapters.
10 chapters.
But the 10th chapter is like 100 pages or something because it's the campaign.
It's like you've got just an overview, history, organization of the Colonial Marines, making making the Marines, gear, campaign play. This is something that folks have been clamoring for a while. Is to how do we implement campaign play with the Alien RPG? It's great for one shots and great for shorter campaigns, but this is a way to kind of instruct folks on how to play a much longer, a campaign style game, which is awesome. Let's just go through here. There's info for vehicles in here, systems and bases, black projects, the Frontier War, and missions. And it just, I can't stress enough the amount of just source information and just stuff to chuck into your games. And like, it's crazy. It's crazy.
The funny thing is that, I think part of the problem is that I didn't really know what we were doing, how we were proceeding with this. Was this going to be a source book? Was this going to be a campaign book? Right? Because in the end, it's both. I had originally thought maybe we should do 2 separate books and everything, but this, as we were going along with it, it made sense to do it this way. But at the same time, it just inflated the book because it's the Colonial Marines. It's so many people. I mean, I personally, Alien is my favorite. Okay. But so many people fell in love with Alien because of Aliens. Okay. So many people, that Cameron movie did it for them. So there's tons of cosplay. There's much more cosplay of Colonial Marines than there is of, space truckers, but they're out there. There's much more Colonial Marines. So people love the Colonial Marines, and it's been the focus of the Dark Horse comics forever. There's so much material to choose from. There was the toy lines that I was determined to put stuff from them in it. And
that's awesome.
There's just so much stuff. And when we get around to Marines again, we'll be able to do another book. Probably that one will be the normal size of 200 page because we did so much in this one. But as much as we've included, there's still more to do. So there's a lot in the 40 years of development.
Now, the amount of, like I said, the amount of source material in this and just the information, how much of that do you pull? Like, do you pull it from all avenues of the IP? Like how much of your time making this book or writing this book is basically going back and researching and because I'm assuming you have to, prep all that well in advance before you sit down and start writing everything.
I mean, it starts with most of my projects, whether it's a novel or anything, a role-playing game. And actually, it came from my game mastering days. I create something that I call a bounce sheet. Okay. And basically what it is I go around. If I'm walking around, I come up with an idea, it goes on the bounce sheet. Okay. If I'm thinking about, I love that Alien story I read in the 90s, I'll put that story name down. So I'll go check it later. And what I do is you get it all together and it's a list of, this is cool list. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then I start to look at it and I'm like, this wasn't part of this, but I could see a connection between this. And then it outlines exactly where we're going to go, what stuff should actually be in this book and not, because what can actually appear as though there was a connection all along in this, even though it was 5 different authors who created these things that had nothing to do with each other. They just are in the Alien universe. So you could see if it's assigned to, if you're talking about something in science, it would be this scientist started this and this one built on that one's research with this and then this, and it all connects that way. I have to put lists together and see connections in order to.
Sure. Sean has a great question. Is there a list of cited sources for the lore that has been researched from existing media? Like that would be pretty cool to be able to read the book and then have a little annotation that says, oh, I pulled this from such and such comic, or I pulled this from, I don't know. I think that.
No, I hear you. I mean, that sounds like a lot of work.
No, we'll just add another 100 pages to it, Andrew.
Maybe we can put out an index. The closest we have to that is my blog, Rogue Reviewer, uh, where I have the cannon tiers, the barroom cannon and all that other stuff. So my general sources for everything is there. But it's interesting because maybe it would make it some interesting blog entries to discuss where things came from and stuff like that.
That would be, yeah.
Yeah, it's something to think about. It, but it's like it feels like it's going to slow the process down. It has to be something afterwards where I go back and look at it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I personally would love to see something like that. Or even if you went to like chapter by chapter as a post on your blog and just said, hey,
right,
this is where I pulled, and
Well, what's great to me is that so much of this is done once I see the connections in my head.
Mm-hmm.
It's written stream of consciousness, and then I got to go back and clean it up later on. I said that word 5 times. What's another word for that word? Switching that. But if I don't get it out real fast like that, it's not coming out at all. So when I do that, it's I just lost my train of thought.
When you make the connections?
Yeah. Okay. So when I'm making what the hell just happened to me? When I'm making connections like that, I don't always remember what I did until someone on a board says, I can't believe he mentioned that guy. And I'm like, oh my God, I did, didn't I? So it becomes, I think a lot of it is because I haven't been immersed in this stuff since I was a kid. Sure. So I read all the Dark Horse books as they came out, the comics, and then the novelizations, and I've always been a fan. So this stuff sneaks in without me even realizing it sometimes.
That's awesome. Now you can kind of tell when you're reading this book that this was, yes, you're doing this as a job, but you can tell this is like a passion project. Like this is something that you really felt passionate writing and like you love this IP and the Aliens universe or the Alien universe, and just like it comes through in just in the tone and in the writing.
I appreciate that, and I hear that a lot, and I'm very thankful that people see that. The extensive history section that I made in this book, it is actually a perfect example of the bound sheet thing, because like we've had the Colonial Marines technical manual, and it says, oh, there was this battle and this battle and this battle, but they don't give you all that much information about the battle. They give you more of like, this is what it was like in the battle and what we were calling the enemy and what happened with that. So it's like little flavor stuff that they have in there. But I was like, how does all this relate to the bigger universe? Is there a way to tie this rebellion on this world there with this here, with the formation of this government here? And I did a lot of research into, yay, we saved the day, we freed this nation, and then we screwed it up after we saved it. Like whoever we is, that happens a lot. So I drew upon actual things in actual history, and then I looked at some of the events that have been mentioned that have happened here before, or happened there before. And it's like, well, what if the fallout for that was similar to what happened in the real world, and that would actually tie into this next thing. So the history thing was really important to me, and it wound up being much bigger than it was supposed to be. If you look at the timeline that they have there, it's like they barely could fit everything.
I noticed that. Yeah, that was great.
So I feel like that taking all those things that exist already and filling in the blanks is what makes it feel like, oh, this is not some universe that you came up with and slapped the word alien on. These are all these things that I was aware of in one way, shape, or form before, and now you've made them all connect. And that's the key to this. It's not about putting your own, I'm going to put my stamp on Alien. No, I never once have thought that. I was like, I'm going to take Alien and clean up the edges of its stamp and give it some color enhancement, but it's always going to be what was there already, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Let's get to some of the comments while we can. Quantum Sheep says, thank you for including stuff from the technical manual. Was chuffed to see the tanks in there. Yeah, there's some great vehicles in there and spacecraft too. Killer says, do we know when the hard copy will be sent? I know that we don't have, like I said, we don't have an exact date for the technical release at retail, but I did talk to the powers that be at Free League, aka Thomas, and he's hoping that they will be sent out the end of June. I think is what he was aiming for and what he hopes. Of course, with everything else in the world going on, nothing's guaranteed, but that's what they're aiming for at this point.
It's definitely going to be here this summer. There's no question of that. It's just at this point, there's the only thing that has to happen is it has to get to the printer. The printer has to print it, and it has to get back to here. Is what has to happen. So
let's go through here and find some more question. Is the 20 parsec limit a technical limitation, a political problem, or both?
It is both. The 20 parsec limit. The idea of this came about from the Prometheus streaming data that was released to promote the movie when it came out in 2012. They did all this stuff on this Wayland website about all these colonies that we've put out there, and a lot of them are really far off the map, and they don't make sense that we'd be maintaining them in the world we have later in Alien. So I came up with this idea that some of these worlds we overextended. Okay, if a company is sponsoring all these colonies and that company goes belly up, what happens to those colonies? Who's protecting them? If they're out beyond this 20 parsec limit,
right,
what government is responsible for it? You have to set limits. So look, we can protect you if you go out this far. If you out that far, you're on your own. And the idea was that that's where the network comes in, because it's a relay system that allows us to be in touch with all these colonies, even though there's a 3-week lag here or a 2-month lag there. Within that range, it's still something we can possibly get to you and help you out. If you go out that farther than that, like, okay, if you send us dress call, we're going to get it in 2 years. Good luck, So it's the politics behind the companies basically having something similar happen to them. What happened to the banks in 2008 is what I put in there, which led to this the abandoning of a whole bunch of colonies and the pulling everything back into the 20 parsec limit. So that's what that is about. It's a 40 parsec sphere around Earth, so a radius of 20 parsecs in any direction. Right. The Colonial Marines will respond to your distress call as long as you're within that limit.
Peter has a question for you, Andrew. It says, just to clarify, combat synths are officially illegal as of 2184, right? But of course, that doesn't stop people from using them, like the UPP.
Yeah, they've been illegal since I think I have it. It's in the books since the 50s. They've been illegal. But the UPP basically got their hands on a whole bunch of out-of-date David models and have decided, hey, you know what? Why do we care? So that's going to eventually change the combat synths. Basically, they're under review whether or not they should remain illegal, because if our enemies are using them, why aren't we? Is what it's coming down to. So one of the things I'm trying to do with these books, and I've said this before, and the other thing is progress each book. Right. Each years of publication progresses the storyline a year of the universe. So ramifications are coming. For a perfect example, ramifications of Destroyer of Worlds are definitely felt in the Frontier War in this new book. So you're part of an expanding universe that's shifting, and we're working to bring you a coherent alien universe outside of just Free League, and I'm not going to say anything more than that right now. So let that be easy.
Okay. Sean has a question. This is, what pages should potential players of the campaign absolutely avoid reading? The book does a great job of delineating delineating what you should and shouldn't read.
It says I think it's marked as Game Master section and Player section. So.
Yeah. I'm trying to see specifically where. I think it's like chapter 5.
Yeah, I think 6 to 10 is Game Master and 1 to 5 is Player.
Yeah, so definitely, it does tell you in the book. Only read up to this point, and the book actually tells you, if you're playing it, keep the book handy, and you can have it as actually as a handbook. And I think that's pretty neat.
Yeah, there's a lot of entries in there where, like in a campaign, it'll say, give this briefing to your players and then now it's okay to show them the information on this planet that's on page blah 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 blah. You know,
Right.
so it's things like that. It's not that not all that information cannot be seen by players, but it's better if they don't see it until the right moment, if that makes sense.
Right. It does to me. Indigo Dragon has a question. Question: is there an Alien Besiary book possibly in the works? We get to see xenomorphs, but it would be nice to see to get a wider variety of mysterious and dangerous threats that aren't xenomorphs. Actually, this book does have some of those implements. Yeah. Some of that.
That's the thing. When I came on board on this, I thought we were going to be doing this government source book. And then here's the Besiary, the monster manual, and here's this. And then I realized that that's not the way Freely wants to do this. And I think they're completely right when I look at it, when I took a step back, because why not give you new monsters and new government information and whatever that's related to the theme of the book each time? So this, you're dealing, the Frontier War and the Colonial Marines is the theme of this book. Okay. So the UPP and the UA are going to be at the forefront of this. Now, when we talk about the history stuff, the history in this section tells you a history of warfare that's happened in this thing. With the next book, with the next campaign book, which will be after Heart of Darkness, the Adventure, is going to be the Explorer colonization book, and that will give you the history of exploration.
Right.
Okay. And there's going to be mentioning things that are mentioned in both because one of them is a fallout of the other. So in the end, after 10 years of publishing, you could take this material and make here's just the history book, and here's just this. You can pull it all and move it apart.
Sure.
But like this, I think it's better because it almost like this is what's relevant to what you're trying to do with this particular campaign. So here's your explorer information. Now you know everything about explorers. Don't worry about weeding through the whole history and finding out just about explorers. That makes sense. So with the monsters, they're not really monsters. That's another reason why we don't want to just do a bestiary, because we don't want to make the alien himself just be cannon fodder. So when there's a new alien introduced, it has to be a good reason why, and a good reason why your players wish we hadn't introduced it. If you just have this giant catalog, it's like, and it's the scorpion tail one. It's not as exciting as what does this thing do now? So
Spencer has a question. Are we possibly ever going to touch the William Gibson material at all? The idea of a stellar space Cold War alongside the corporate drama.
Bro, do you even Free League? There's stuff from that in the core book. There's stuff from that in the Destroyer Worlds, and there's a whole bunch of stuff from the Gibson stuff that's in the new book. So yes, I'm a big fan of that stuff. I wanted us to bring. What'd you say?
It just hit me. You just said, "Bro, do you even Free League?" Oh my gosh!
But you see what I'm saying, though. I mean,
I know. You know, it's fine. Hey, there is some of that in the book.
The RPG is the first book to bring the UPP into actual canon. Before that, it was it was Gibson's thing, and it was also in I want to say it was a Nintendo game, maybe DS game called Infestation. The UPP was mentioned, and that was the only two places that it was beforehand. So now, we're bringing stuff from the Gibson stuff into the actual story of the Alien 3 that's not officially canon. That Alien 3 happened instead. In your game world, your Alien 3 may vary, but the stuff is set up there to make it either way. So,
I think bro, do you even Free League is a new shirt that we're gonna have to set Andrew up with from now on. I expect you to wear it at every single convention that and public event that you represent Free League at.
It's kind of a cool idea for a shirt, honestly.
I think it is. I think we'll have to talk to Thomas about it. Sean also wants to know, will there be gear cards with the new ships and vehicles? I don't think so. I don't, because
it's a book.
It's a
hardcover book. So
I wouldn't be surprised if maybe you see them in like maybe another box set that we do later on. But don't quote me on that. But it wouldn't surprise me. But you never know.
Yeah, some of the vehicles that are important to this that are in the core book, in the operations manual have cards already because we put those cards in the Destroyer of Worlds. So
Right.
we've that's pretty much how we're doing. We're figuring out, okay, we're going to put these vehicles in the next campaign book. Let's use some of them in the adventure that is in a box set so you can get some of the cards. So some of these things you're not going to get cards for unless they decide to put out a deck of cards. I don't even know if they might do that. That's something I just thought of right now. So if I'm sure if there's enough of a call for it, it might be something we'd look at.
Yeah, absolutely. James has a question. Says, I remember you having interesting issues writing Destroyer of Worlds because of COVID. Did you have any COVID-related issues with the Colonial Marines book?
The only issue was that Destroyer delayed the work on the Colonial Marine book, which then got delayed because I doubled size. So it was just, it's not, plot-wise, there was no fallout from COVID. Although it's funny now because someone posted something I had written about the 26 Draconis strain and the immunizations from it and everything, and it was separated from it. I looked at it and I was like, and we're all getting immunized now. So it's like, it's like I keep doing this accidental parallel storyline thing. But no, nothing had to be altered because of it, unlike Destroyer. So Destroyer just delayed this, and that was the fallout.
Darth Digital 666 asks, what was your inspiration for designing the background history of the Arcturians?
This is a good question.
Yeah.
A lot of thought went into this. One of the things that always bothered me was that the depiction of the Arcturians in the old role-playing game from Leading Edge said that there were ape creatures with limited intelligence, and I'm like, well, from what we hear in the Cameron film, even though it was just a joke, our Marines are getting busy with that, and I didn't think that was right. So I definitely wanted to make sure that we didn't follow that. It was never canon anyway, and it was weird. So I looked at all canon sources, and I saw that it was mentioned in places that the Weyland-Yutani had traded with the Arcturians, and that they were our first extraterrestrial race that we encountered. Okay. And that we made advances in our sciences based on the dealings with them. Okay. And I started thinking about that, and I'm like, we cannot have another, oh no, we're under attack. But don't worry, our alien friends have shown up. The Vulcans have shown up, and they're gonna, that's not Alien. That's not Alien. That's just broad sci-fi that works for Star Trek, but for Alien, mankind's out there on your own.
Right.
And when you meet something alien, it's got to be really weird. So if we have somebody who's alien, but friends with us, they can't be that far from us. There has to be some kind of connection. And I'm not going to go into details about it because it's explained in the book, but Prometheus was the inspiration for making this all work. And so I wanted them to have an advanced culture, but not necessarily advanced technology. They have advanced medicines, they have advanced metaphysics, and they know things because of stuff that I can't tell you, but you'll see immediately in the book. So we did learn a lot from them, and they're our cousins, but they're not starfaring. They stay on their homeworld. It's the ape creatures that were in the thing. I liked them as a concept, so they still exist as well. They're the Octura, not the Arcturians. And the average schmo in the galaxy confuses the two, which explains why they're wrong in the other book.
Gotcha.
So I wanted to present an alien race. They had to be an alien race based on everything I looked at. I didn't want them to be Mr. Spock. They needed to be something that was almost us, and they needed to make sense, and they needed to not be our friend out there that's going to come to our rescue. So we're still on our own. This thing ties now. The Arcturians actually tie into the themes of what's going on in the prequels, and it just logically seemed to fall out of that. So I don't want to tell any more than that because I want people to read it in the book.
Absolutely. Let's see. In a basis, this is someone pointed out that the Colonial Marines Operations Manual had a blurb that forthcoming supplements will cover all the careers. Please elaborate further.
The next release will be an adventure that fills out the the cinematic adventure trilogy, the 26 Draconis trilogy of Chariot of Gods, Destroy Worlds, and this new one is called Heart of Darkness. Okay.
Yeah.
After that, we are releasing a source book like this for colonists, explorers and colonists. I have a working title, which we're not sure if we're keeping yet, but it's like, the Extrasolar Exploration and Colonization Handbook, something like that, like
sure.
the Colonial Marines Operations Manual. Then there's that, okay? And there's a campaign which will deal with exploring new worlds and setting up colonies on, and trying to create a new life out amongst the stars. After that, there'll be a new cinematic that deals with space truckers, and there'll be the Space Truckers campaign source book, okay? After that, maybe we're going to go into corporations. Maybe we're going to go into androids. I'm not at liberty to say what we're doing next step with that, but I can tell you that that's the next basically 2 years there.
That's awesome.
So we're going to keep picking, and then what we do is when we get through everything, we're going to start cycling back. So eventually we'll come back. Here's your Colonial Book 2, then here's your second source book for Space Truckers, blah, 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 blah. So, but we're trying, the three major parts of the Alien game as presented in the core book was military action, space truckers, and sense of wonder. So sense of wonder is the exploration, and we don't want to just have a colonist book where it's like, roll to see if your crops grew. So it's an
what? I'm totally down for that. I don't know what you're talking about.
We're actually doing stuff with that too, but it doesn't. I was like, I don't know if that's that alone. I don't know, but we have some cool stuff coming with that.
Nice.
Actually, I'll drop a plug in. Dave Semark came up with some cool stuff for that. That's going to be in that book. But I don't think that that's enough to carry the book by itself.
Right.
So, but those two things make perfect sense together. Because what do you do after you explore the world? You try and tame it. That's part of the thing. So that's being put together. But what's also happening in all this is that Explorer's book is going to deal with ramifications from what happened in the Frontier War. And each thing is going to, it's like, okay, you're space truckers now, but you're space truckers in a post-war world or something, so it's a little different than you saw space truckers in Alien, because now we got all this other crazy stuff that's happening that's the ramifications of the war, so which is going to make things interesting, because by the time you get to space truckers again, the political situation will be changed.
Sure.
So it'll be a different type of being a space trucker. So
that's really cool. I love that. HDE's totally unoriginal gaming show says, just wanted to chime in and say that I'm not an RPG player, but being an Alien nut, I got a hold of the core rulebook recently, and I need 5 people to play it with. Thanks for all your hard work, Andrew.
Thank you. I've said this on your show before, Douglas, that I wanted it. My inspiration for the whole thing in the first place was the West End Star Wars game. I wanted this to be, if you don't play the game, you want this thing on your shelf anyway, because there's no better source book. So that's the way I tried to present it.
Yep. And I know I read a lot of RPG books just in general, not just Free League. I know I've got Free League, in the background, and I've got Free League on my shirt, but I do read other RPG books, and it's amazing to me that the size of this book, like, there was only one writer. Like there was it was like you're reading this and you're like, oh my god, how many 5 or 6 people must have had to work on this together to write all this, and it's just your name. It's crazy to think about that.
I'm not.
I mean, there's a team behind it, but the lead writer.
Yes, I mean, 70 to 85% of this was written by me. Okay, but the stuff that the other people contributed, I could not get done without them. So. And plus Thomas is making sure this all makes sense and works together the whole time. So it's not just lead writer. Yes, I'm coming up with these concepts and trying to make the universe make sense and everything, but never is this just a one-man show. No,
and I'm not trying to say, and I'm trying to just give you a little praise, because the amount of when you look at books like this, you're going, wow, there's got to be a huge team behind putting out this product, and there's not a big team behind this product, and it's amazing to when you realize that.
Yeah, but you had actually sent me a screenshot of I can't remember what book it is, and if we even remember, don't say what it is.
We don't, yeah.
But some book, and it was like credits, and it was like movie credits. It was this giant list of things, and then you took the screenshot from this book, and it's like I didn't realize it was like that. But maybe that's I don't know. Singular vision.
There is something about too many cooks in the kitchen. That is a thing.
I'm the first person to say the cooks that I do have, that I can't do it without them.
Absolutely.
A perfect example is I trip up on game mechanics a lot. Okay, and so like there were certain things I was trying to do in this book, and Thomas would get back to me. He'd be like, "What are you doing?" I'd be like, "Well, this thing." He's like, "You just complicated this, man." And I'm like, "Okay, so I'm like, why don't I just tell you what needs to happen here?" And I explained it to him, and he's like, "Oh yeah." And in 2 seconds, boom, 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 he's got it down. And I was like, "That makes perfect sense. That's such a simple mechanic for this convoluted thing I just tried to make happen, and it accomplishes it perfectly. And this is why this is his company."
Exactly.
So yeah, it's. I appreciate what you're saying, and I do realize that because I look at the list and I'm like, okay, yeah, that is a difference. But at the same time, you can't do everything by yourself no matter what.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm not saying that there isn't a team behind you. It's just amazing that when you look at large RPG books like this that are 300, 400 pages, you think, oh my God, there must have been like at least a dozen people behind this, and writing on this, and then all their work kind of gets merged together. Whereas it's not quite that. And I think that this says a lot about your style and the love that Free League loves to put into this IP. So anyway, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go off on. I tried to give you a little bit of a compliment.
No, I appreciate it. I get a little uncomfortable with that sometimes. I know. You know what I'm saying. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Let's see here. Peter says, "Thank you, Andrew, for finally giving the Arcturians their due and fleshing them out fully."
First of all, you need to ban that guy.
No.
Yeah, no, you don't. He's one of the people who's been honored with a character in the book.
Oh, nice.
There's Petra de Rosa in the book, the female version of him. I people who've helped me out with stuff, I'm giving them the you want to die in the book, and people are like, hell yeah.
Who wouldn't want to die? That's awesome. So it must be, what's it like to see the finished copy? Like, because I know we've been talking back and forth as it was leading up to being released and everything, and I think we both got the PDF at pretty much the same time, the finished PDF. What's that like? Like, what are your thoughts? What are you feeling at that point when you've put all this work in, and then finally you get to see the finished product and everything? What I mean, of course we don't see the physical book, but we see how it's going to be all laid out and how it's going to be printed and all that. But what are you what's going through your head?
The thing, it's not real to me until it's in my hands.
Okay,
that's what it comes down to. Part of it is the smell of the book, and anybody who's a book lover will say something like that. It's like, I did all this work, and I'm looking at the PDF, and I'm like, yeah, okay. Just making sure it's right. Did we screw up anything here? Did I make a mistake here? And I'm paranoid about it. And it looks good. And then I'll accidentally catch something that's wrong. And I'm like, oh no, what do we do? But when the book is in your hand, if there's a typo in there, it's like, dude, look at all the rest of this. Who cares that you have one little typo in there? You're a human being, okay? And it's like the weight of that core book. When I first held that core book, I was like, wow, I can't believe that this is a thing. So it's not until that book is in people's hands, it's not real. But there's different stages of real. Getting that final PDF is not a stage of real to me. But hearing the people's reactions to it
in
the past 2 days, that is a stage of real. And that is like, oh, okay. Oh, you realize I did that. You saw something I was trying to do there that I didn't think anyone was going to notice. Oh, okay. And that's where I start to feel really good about it, you know. But that getting the book in your hand thing won't be until I actually hold the physical book.
Okay. That makes
Probably
sense.
because I'm an old guy.
I totally agree with you. It's that's why I like to buy Dead Tree versions of all my RPGs in general anyway. Spider King 23 says, question, the ape suit from the base game, isn't it supposed to be acid resistant? Because there's no mechanics for it.
I think that's I think that depends on a couple of things. One, and I was thinking about this when we do get around to doing corporate book, there's probably going to be different marks of the ape suit. But my take on the ape suit when they show up in Alien 3 is that these guys are completely inappropriately dressed for what they're doing. They think they're going to grab this thing with the dog harness, and they think, what are they thinking? What is this stupidity? And to me, that's the hubris of Weyland-Yutani. So if you want to have it reduce the damage a little bit, sure, but they're not really prepared like they think they are. That's the way. That's been my take on it. Now, it's entirely possible that some source out there said it is acid resistant, and if that's the case, then it can be in your thing, and it's just a different mark than the one that we have in the core book. It's as simple as that. Because obviously, that's another thing that's going to happen. The more that they are exposed to these things, the more they're going to realize, oh wait, yeah, maybe we shouldn't have had the dog noose. Maybe we should have had, a net gun or something, whatever, something to keep it the hell away from me. So that's a lot of these things have been simplified in the rules to make it easy to do. And if you think you need that, if you think that works for what's going on in your story, sure, make it resistant. It should never be acid proof. Nothing is acid proof.
Right.
There's a thing that's specifically designed to wade into hordes of aliens. That's in that Colonial Marine book, and that has rules for acid resistance in it. And even that is not gonna. If a queen is laying on top of that thing's going down anyway. As she bleeds out on him. So all these things, you got to always look at these things as that we're looking, especially if it's in a core book. Hey, this is the basic concept. Right. We're probably going to give you an expansion version of it later. And you'll see that with some of the things that are in the Marine book. You'll see certain weapons that are there, and then, here's an expanded version of that. And unfortunately, some of that stuff actually got to get pulled out that was coming because there just wasn't enough room. Mm-hmm. So it's a balance. It's like, do I want to give you an expanded version of what new ammo could do for a gun that you had already? Or do I want to give you a brand new vehicle to play with? So it's a balancing act. So yeah, if it works for your campaign, if your Weyland-Yutani guys are a little smarter than the average Weyland-Yutani guys, give it some kind of resistance, sure.
Sean wants to know if the Colonial Marines operations manual smell as good as we imagine it does. Love that new. We hope it does. It hasn't gone to print yet.
I mean, it has not come out of the press yet. Let's put it that way.
Right. So it's very, very soon. Very soon, we'll know that smell here a little bit. Well, let's see here.
The funny thing is that when the core book came out, so many people were complaining about the smell, and I think it was because there was so much ink in that book.
Yes.
And it's like I sniffed it the other day, and it calmed down. It does. Yeah. It's pleasant now.
Coriolis is a lot like that. In that it had a lot of dark pages, so there was a lot of. So, someone asked about Alien 3 material. I forget. I'm trying to. My chat keeps on bouncing all the way to the bottom, and I can't. Someone was wondering if there was going to be. Shoot, I can't find it. So what was there something from this Colonial Marines operations manual that you had to take out that you wish could have been left in, or that is going to probably make its way into a supplement down the road?
There's tons of stuff that has not made it into each of the books.
Okay.
And has then been moved into the next book or moved into the book after that. A lot of vehicles are going to be showing up in the the campaign books for the explorers and the campaign book for the space truckers. Because originally I had probably another 30 pages worth of vehicles in the core book. Here's a ship class from Isolation, and here's this thing from a concept art, and here's this. And it's like, you don't need all that in a core book. But that stuff is great to put in the Space Truckers campaign book, because now you don't have to just fly this one freighter. You can fly this type of ship, and this type of ship, and this type of ship. So there's the thing that got moved the most out of the Marine book was other aliens, other alien types,
sure,
and expansion rules for specific weapons. I don't want to say exactly what.
Okay, that's fine. Sure,
but those things will definitely come into play later on. And in regards to taking the aliens out, it was smart to do because it tightened up the storyline. There's still a whole bunch of new stuff in there.
There is.
And your players are going to be like, really regret that it's in there. But there's something in particular that is based on something from one of the Dark Horse comics. It was one of the weirder Dark Horse comics that I think translated really well. You know what? I'm not going to say its name. Just let's let people find that. But it's about you want to give people options, but at the same time you don't want it to lose its focus. So if I give you 2 or 3 amazingly weird new aliens per campaign book instead of 17, what are you going to remember more when you use them? What's going to be more remarkable in your campaign? I mean, the body burster from Destroyer, everybody talks about that.
Right.
That's the new standout, So, but if there were 15 other things in there with it, would everybody be talking about the body burster?
Probably not.
So it's about managing expectations or creating expectations. I don't know. You don't need to eat the whole candy shop. Have this piece of candy, and then you can want to go back to the candy shop tomorrow.
I like that. Mohammed says, thanks to Andrew. I am new to RPGs, and Alien was the one that pulled me in. How does that make you feel? Like you're inspiring a whole new wave of RPG players, like with this line. It's amazing, and I'm hearing that a lot. Like a lot of folks are they're Alien fans, and they pick these books up because they're source books, but then they want to get playing RPGs and getting into the hobby and how is it that's just
I love it. I mean, and it's one of the things I like I said, I always planned, I was like, we want people to buy this because it's the best alien book they've seen. And if in the process it becomes a gateway drug, we've done twice the work here, and it's great because, but I'll tell you this, and again, it comes down to, the whole team thing. If the rules weren't Free League's rules, the way that they have done it, the way Thomas keeps telling me, no, we will do it like this, and it's much simpler and cleaner, and people can get it, then you wouldn't be getting new gamers out of this. You'd just be getting the source book buyers, and they'd be like, I was going to try and play this, but I don't know. It's really complicated. No, you can figure this out, and you can do it simple. And if you forget something in this, the whole game isn't screwed. You're like, oh, I forgot that thing. I'll just remember to include it next time. The game went fine with forgetting it. That doesn't work that way in a lot of game systems. So I opened the door and with the way I wrote it, and then Thomas's stuff is what made them sit down instead of just reading it on the shelf, if that makes sense. So we have a perfect storm of good setting, writing, and good rules and good art and everything. So
absolutely. The topic's been brought up a couple times, and I feel like I should probably address it just because I think I'm being called out that I'm not addressing Disney related questions. That just and how the interaction is with the IP overall and everything. Let's just say that it's great. We have a great relationship with Disney, and we've been able to do some great things with this brand and with this IP. And as you hear, we've got many years worth of products down the pipeline. So Do you want? Is there anything you'd like? I know that they have some stuff in the works as well. So I don't know if you know.
So what is the question we're asking here? Are we asking about Google process? Or are we asking about tying into other products? So how has the interaction been with and since we've been dealing with the IP overall and when looking back on it and you know. I think it's been really good as far as we're concerned. They've been really happy with awards and success. They're not going to complain about that. Like I said, this was the first book that they have had it run through Disney offices instead of 20th Century offices. Okay, so there was a whole new learning curve on how to handle this, and the delay was it having to go through all these people and departments that had never seen a book like this before. Okay. But in the end, the feedback we got on what needed to be changed was really minor stuff and made perfect sense that they wanted to change. When I was doing it with Fox, we never got any changes because I had been on the opposite side of that as a consultant. And I was like, avoid this word, don't do this, don't do that, and we'll get right through. Because I had been the one who was saying, hey, we can't approve this because it's this. But now with Disney, it's a whole new system. So, but we've learned that now too. So it's they are behind the product. They are behind the property. I get really, I don't want to go on too much on a tangent of this, but I roll my eyes every time. It's like, Disney's going to ruin Alien just like they ruined Star Wars. No, they didn't ruin Star Wars anyway.
No, it's more popular now than it's been like in my life.
It's just this whiny, toxic boys who complain that they don't like it. Yeah, you don't like the movie. I understand that. But sometimes we don't like where somebody went with something. But that didn't mean they ruined it. Nothing's... If the prequel's going to ruin Star Wars, nothing can. If the Star Wars holiday special didn't ruin Star Wars, nothing can. Okay? That's true. There's been plenty of hiccups in Star Wars along the way. And it just comes back stronger than ever. And The Mandalorian is a perfect example of that.
Oh, it's yeah.
You know, there's you're gonna try new things with Star Wars. The Mandalorian could have been the oof, we shouldn't have tried that. It was a gamble doing it the way it was done. Okay. And it turned out not to be that. And so that's what's happening now. And with Disney's gonna be trying new things like the Marvel stuff with the Alien comic. They're gonna be trying new things to see what works here. Yeah, what works here and what doesn't. They're gonna be handling it a different way to find the voice. Yep. Okay. And they really like our voice. They like what we're doing because clearly it's resonating with the audience. So we have a good relationship with them, exactly what you said. And I hope that clarifies things. I didn't want people, I was afraid that people were thinking, this is taking for so long for Disney to approve it. They must hate it. There must be a problem. It wasn't that at all. It was like, oh, this is a thing? A 400-page game? It's like, because their department here was more used to dealing with board game type stuff.
Sure.
So it had to go through other hoops because it's not a board game, you know. So, and it's because things have been blending together with 20th Century and since the takeover. So,
Killhard asks, what was the one part of the manual that you enjoyed the most working on? Good question.
I'm going to say that history section because it was. It's like Neo suddenly seeing the code of everything around him and understanding how the Matrix works, and then being able to avoid the bullets because he sees everything as code. That's what it's like for me when I look at all this data together, and suddenly I see how this can work together as a flowing, living, universal history. And that's what I felt when I did it. And that's why it became as long as it did. And I think it helps cement so many things. So it's similar to what happened to me when I was writing the Predator Bible. Because Predator is one of those things that's not, it doesn't have a coherent story. It's like the first movie was about Dutch. Next movie was about Danny Glover's character. You know, it's like it's not like we're following Ripley's story through this thing. We're following, David through this thing. It's not, there's never been that in Predator. Okay. But when you read all the material together, you suddenly see every Predator story is really about this. And these people that are writing them aren't even realizing that. this will always happen because this is the type of thing it's trying to reach. And it's seeing that data suddenly in front of you all makes sense when you didn't think it was before. That's my favorite part about a project. And like that's what I got out of the history section on this.
Brian Toller says, I got my PDF. Love what I've been able to read so far. Keep up the great work. You all keep writing them. I'll keep buying them. Thank you, Brian. That's very nice to say.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Max says, no, you should eat the candy shop right away.
I mean, that's an option. You may regret it later, but...
let's see here. Now we're just getting. I'm just in like a whole bunch of Star Wars chat. Did
I open a can of worms?
I feel like I'm like behind. Ben Nowak says, Andrew, you took the Prometheus and Covenant concepts and made them extremely intriguing and interesting, far more than the source material. That's a testament to your ability.
I really appreciate that. But I also think that stuff was there already. It just maybe it wasn't presented in a way that reached the people, but it was there because I didn't make any of it up. I pulled out, this is what I see that's there already. So, and since I saw it already, there's something wrong with my brain, but it was what was trying to be conveyed. So where does the fault come? Is it had something to do with the way it was marketed? Does it have something to do with the way it was edited? What was the fault that left that people are saying, oh, this Prometheus stuff's so cool, but maybe they didn't feel about it when it was in the theater? What is causing it to be seen now? Is it translated differently? Is it because I'm spelling it out for you instead of you learning a mystery on screen that you said that people are seeing it in a different way? I don't know what it is, but it's not. I didn't take it and change any of it. To me, this is what I saw on the screen when I saw the movie. And when you read interviews and you look at the concept art and everything, it's just confirming to me what I thought I saw. But it's clear to me that it also didn't resonate with everybody the way it managed to do it with me. Right. So I'm happy that I'm able to say, look, I got this cool thing out of it. I'm going to give it to you. And now you're getting it too. And I love that. I'm helping people to see it in a better way.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of potential in those films, but something is off. What is it? Is it in some cases? I really think with Covenant, I think part of it has to do with just reaction to people not understanding what was going on in Prometheus. So changing some things to try and fit what is more of the perceived norm, and then people complaining, oh, we just got the same thing again. So it's a really complicated thing that I really try to look at, because these franchises are great and there's a lot of great stuff that's happening in them that isn't always hitting the mark it should, even though it's of a quality concept that should be hitting that mark, which I'm just repeating myself now. So you hear what I'm saying.
Absolutely. Lawbringer 0315S. There's a lot of love and lore in this book. Mr. Andrew, I like that. I might have to call you that from now on. I think did you have a favorite Dark Horse arc run that was published in the last few decades?
My favorite Dark Horse story of them all is the first 3 miniseries, and I prefer the novel version of them to the comic. But Earth War. Earth Hive, Female War, Nightmare Asylum. Those are the 3 names I think that they're going with mostly with those, because they've changed it. Originally, the first series was called Outbreak, but those stories. I remember going to a comic shop and being shocked that there was an Aliens comic, and I picked it up, the black and white comic. I was like, this is my first black and white comic actually too, because I was Marvel DC and that was it. Seeing it on the shelf and picking it up and feeling like there was a maturity to the storytelling in that. And Mark Vandenheim went on to work on Battlestar Galactica, the new Battlestar Galactica later on. So he definitely had the writing chops as far back as then. It was a different way of looking at things in comics, and there was just some crazy concepts in there that worked. And I feel like as the Dark Horse stuff went on, later in the 90s, it got kind of crazy. Like with the Jerry the Robot. I fucking can't stand. Oh, excuse me. I cannot stand Jerry. Can you bleep me? Is it too late?
It's too late. It's too late. I have to now go in and make this age restricted.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, that's how much I love Jerry. But, I don't know if I ever told you this, but one of the fans has heard me complain about Jerry a lot, so he bought me the Jerry statue.
Oh, that's awesome.
I keep it on my desk when I write Alien.
That's great.
So, yeah, so no, but that stuff in the beginning really showed me, oh, there's a lot more you can do with this universe. And unfortunately, a lot of stuff after that was more derivative, I think. But then we've got great ideas like Dr. Church from, what's the name of that storyline? Is that Salvation? I can't remember the storyline now. I've read it all too much. It blurred all together. But he's the guy. His family was captured, put in a hive, but the hive was sick, and there was this pools of stuff that they were making people drink. Mm-hmm. Which is like when you read the story now, it's like, dude, that's the black goo they were drinking. But clearly the writer didn't know anything about the black goo back then. You know what I mean? So like the stories like that, you look at it now and you're like, wow, this all fits perfectly with what came out later on, and you can see the connections. So there's Dark Horse just really, they did a lot of cool stuff, and then they did Jerry. So
Paladin Price asks, how does Ridley feel about the RPG? Like when you sit down and talk with him and have meetings.
Yeah, I know. It's like, well, him and I were having martinis on the beach the other day.
Yeah.
I have no idea. It doesn't work like that. A lot of people think that as a canon consultant, I dealt directly with Ridley and stuff like that, but no. The franchise department deals directly with Ridley. But we don't deal directly with Ridley. So we're not the franchise department. Even I was just a consultant to the franchise department. So we have not heard anything negative, which, as far as I'm concerned, means he loves it.
Freely Publishing, what do you think a Marine would think if a Xeno was fighting them with a sword and winning? I don't know what that.
I think you need to get help.
Probably.
Why a Xeno with a sword?
Yeah, that would be interesting.
You've actually stumped me into silence. I don't know how to answer that.
Carl has a good question here. This is unrelated to the Colonial Marines manual per se, but does Free League have any plans to create a guide for GMs wishing to create their own cinematic games?
No, we can't really do that. We can give you tips in a book. I mean, the Marine book
it does have that. Yeah,
it has lots of tips on how to create your own campaign. Okay, but we can't. It's not like I think Coriolis is that you can do public. Fans can create their own stuff and put it up. Is it?
Yep.
Coriolis does that? Yeah. You can't do that with Alien because it's owned by Fox, Disney. Licenses don't usually allow that to happen. So what we can do is we cannot put up a product that will be a guideline to making these things for release, but we can, when we do every campaign book, we're going to tell you, here, this is how you make a campaign. This is how you do this. If you're talking specifically about cinematics, are there rules for that already? There's supposed to be rules for that already in the core book, because
it kind of touches on it a little bit, but yeah,
it's an interesting thought about in regards to cinematics, though, because the cinematic isn't designed. The cinematic is designed for us to say, you don't need to think about it. Here it is.
Right.
You want to take that and do different things with it. Go right ahead. But this is just, hey, we've given you everything. Don't worry about it. Have a good night. Don't try to worry about figuring it out. You don't have to. Your campaign is here's the tools on how you need to figure this out, because we want you to create your own thing with that. So I don't know. It's something I need to think about. Interesting question.
I think there's a lot of chat that I'm now part of the. I've caught up to the Star Wars portion, and I think more people want you to give your opinion on the new Star Wars content that Disney puts out, because they really are big fans of. No, don't do that. Just kidding. I'm trying to say. I was going to say.
What are they being negative? Is that what's going on?
There's some folks that say that are calling you out, Andrew, that say that it's not.
I disagree.
I think some of it's really good.
Some of it is really good, and some of it isn't. And it's like and the prequels, if anything, I really don't like the prequels. I never have. However, I love Clone Wars.
Yep, I do too.
Which uses the material from the prequels. So that tells me my feelings about that is the same as people's feelings about Prometheus.
Yep.
The prequels must have had some good in there that I wasn't seeing because other writers were able to take it and pull it out of there. So
yeah, Spider King 23 says the reason why Prometheus didn't work was the story was incoherent and details were not detailed. And details were not detailed incorrectly or correctly, I guess.
Probably. So they were detailed correctly? No. It's accidental double negative. Right.
So
if you don't know, I honestly feel like Prometheus suffered from the editing. Because if you take a lot of those scenes that were cut out and you put them back into the film, it suddenly feels a lot fuller.
Right. So. Ben says Andrew is too humble. Also, I think taking the Prometheus Covenant concepts and applying them to RPG where players make their own story was the saving grace. Correct move, maximizing potential.
Exactly. That's what it is. It's because it's being spelled out for you and tell you to go do what you want with it. I'm not doing things with it that are making you say, well, I don't want to do that. That's the big lesson I learned from reactions in Planet of the Apes novels that I wrote. People overwhelmingly positive responses, but then lots of people were like, who are you to come in here and after 40 years tell us how the timeline worked? I'm the guy who was hired to write a novel. That's all I was.
Right.
Okay? But I learned a lot about that because I actually had I guess a stalker from the Planet of the Apes stuff. Someone who was altering art of apes characters, torturing a human to have my face on them and things like that. Yeah, really crazy stuff. Okay. And I realized there's something wrong with that person. Okay, no question. Okay, why are you going this far? Why you need to calm down? But at the same time, I took a step back and I was like, how do we present things in a way so that we can be true to the canon, but at the same time make it accessible for everybody to put whatever they want in it? And that's what I did with the Prometheus stuff. That's what the Barroom canon stuff is and everything like that. So people don't necessarily want you to put your interpretation on it. Right. They probably want your interpretation to be almost optional, and that's what it is. Because I know a lot of people who are saying who play the game, and I facepalm when they tell you that the Alien 3 doesn't count. They count Gibson's Alien 3 instead, but that's their right to do that. That's why I put the little hints in there that it could be done. So the canon is, in the end of the day, whatever the owners decide it is. Your headcanon at the end of the day is whatever the hell you decide it is. And those two don't have to be in conflict. You don't have to be bitter about their canon, and the canon people don't need to be bitter about your headcanon. They can be two separate entities.
Lawbringer 0315 has another question. Says, Mr. Gaska, wow, we're really formal in this chat tonight. Mr. Gaska, is that what I'm going to have to call you now from now on too? Mr. Gaska?
I thought it was Mr. Andrew, so...
If you did Destroyer of Worlds as a large budget movie, who would you see in Hollywood or Broadway as your headcanon actors for the Core Marine Fire Team? There you go. That's a good question for you.
I have no idea. Obviously, Winona Ryder would play the android.
Sure.
Yeah. Jeez. This is a tough one. This is a tough one.
It is. I put you on the spot.
I'll have to think about this. We'll have to come back to this question when we get to Heart of Darkness, because I actually have picked out actors for Heart of Darkness.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Very cool.
Because we've got it down to routine now, and when we're creating adventures and stuff like that, it's like I need to give them as much reference for art that I need in the story as possible. Okay. So I usually find, hey, something like this. And then this time I was like, why don't I just cast actors in the roles? So I found actors looking as grungy as they needed to be, or as pristine, whatever the role called for. And I said, yeah, like this guy, like this guy. And now they won't exactly be those actors when the paintings are done, because it's not like we're,
right.
But this actor is your inspiration. So I will totally be able to answer this question for Heart of Darkness. I'll have to think about it in regards to
Interesting. John G has a good question. It says, are you anticipating the FX Alien TV series, and do you think they'll borrow from your source books?
I'm excited for the TV series. I can't talk anything about it, but I can say this, and this is something that is just true to licenses. I create the stuff that they then own, and if I write it in the next book, I'm borrowing it.
Right.
It belongs to them. So they're not borrowing anything from me. I created it for them, and they own it. And that's what work for hire is. I do enough of this stuff, and then one day I might be somebody who doesn't have a work for hire situation in these things, because this guy does all this great work. Let's bring him in like a Ridley Scott. Ridley Scott doesn't have a work for hire situation because he's Ridley Scott. If I ever became the Ridley Scott of role-playing games.
Wait, you're not already? I thought you were.
No, I'm the George Lucas, remember?
Oh, that's right.
but you see what I'm saying here, though. It's like I that's one of the reasons why I never understand people who try to move over Alien. I'm going to do Alien right, not like it's been done.
Right.
No, and I'm just saying Alien because that's the property we're talking about. Find the core of what's there, pull it out of there, save your idea of what you want to do for your thing, for your own series. Just be true to Alien here. And you will find the things that, hey, no one's ever done this, but doesn't that just fit perfectly in everything that's here already? And that's where you get your gems in franchise material, not when you are like, I'm just going to change everything.
Right.
So yeah, I will be very proud to see stuff that I've created for them show up on screen. Sure.
That'd be a huge honor. That would be, I know that I would be like so stoked if that were me. Zebra God 69 says, would you consider creating material for monster generation in the vein of genetic engineering that was done by the engineers, something to allow us to create interesting alien variants, like something that you could just kind of roll a table and kind of just come up with something at random?
So I had actually done this.
Really?
For the core book, yeah. And it got pulled. And then it was going to get moved to the Marine book, and then it got pulled. And I'm thinking it'll never see the light of day. Because this is something that Thomas is very passionate about, and I agree with him every time I get snapped back to my senses about it. The alien is a mythical thing. Right. It's not just a monster that we're going to roll on a table and determine its attributes. Okay. One of the things that in the core book, I hadn't understood the rules at all when I was writing it, because I was just the settings guy originally. Okay. So I was just like, this is what this government's like, and that's what that's like. And if there was something I think needed to be a rule, I gave a suggestion. Okay. So I didn't even know about the signature attacks. A bunch of them are based on things I said, yeah, Alien would probably do this, Alien would probably do that. Okay, but Dave Samark did all those signature attacks. In the newer stuff, now that I'm aware of the rules, because I've obviously, I live this thing now, I've been creating the signature attacks for the new aliens. And a lot of times, an alien may not look that different than the last one.
Right.
You won't necessarily, your players aren't going to know that this is different. But when you roll that attack thing and you're like, oh my God, what the hell is it doing? That's where it becomes, I don't know what I'm facing here. Okay.
Right.
So it seemed to make more sense to take the things I put on that table. And instead, this new adventure will have that alien in it instead of the combination of this attack with this armor and this, because again, it trivializes it.
Right.
Something like that might make sense for generating regular creatures you would find on other worlds. But I don't feel like it would work for the alien. I really don't.
Okay. Sure.
So I do it myself when I'm like, what am I going to put in this one? Oh, I'll take that from that, and then I'll craft something that makes perfect sense. But I don't think that I think it trivializes the creature itself. But just having this discussion, maybe that is something that needs to go in the colony book, just not related to the alien itself, just
that
related
would be
to
cool.
regular life forms.
Yeah, that would be pretty neat. That would be very cool. Let's just see here. We've got we've gone over 15 minutes. We're going to go just for an hour. Do you have any objection to taking a few more questions?
No, let's do it.
All right. If anybody has any more questions, hi guys. I love the newest offering from you guys. The Marine book is awesome. Thank you, JC. That's very kind of you.
Thank you.
Riot Knight 13 says, I know they could never be question. I know that they could never be published if they are from another franchise, but are there any other iconic sci-fi monsters that you think would be cool foes in the Alien RPG system? I think we kind of I think we know where they're fishing on this one, Drew. I think that's a common question. I'm
going to ignore that fishing, and I'm going to answer it with a different answer.
Sure.
So I pitched a comic series to Dark Horse a long time ago, over a decade ago, and it was making headway as being possibly signed on, and then editorial regime changed and it got left to the side because the license ended also as well, I believe. But it was Alien versus the Thing. And in this concept,
that would be cool.
The engineers, and I wrote this like 15 years ago or something. The engineers it was after Prometheus. Okay. So I guess that's 10 years, 9 years. The engineers had created the alien to stop the spread of the Thing across the galaxy. And the reason why the alien was created for it was because the alien had acid blood. So when the Thing tried to assimilate the alien, it was destroyed in the acid. So this was the concept for the Thing versus the alien. So the Thing itself seems to have its origins in something similar to the black goo in the first place, if you look at them together. So I would totally think the Thing would be an awesome thing.
That would be
to bring into the alien universe.
Ben wants to know, why would you tease me with Alien versus the Thing?
I'm just pro like that.
Darth Digital 666S, would you make a source book based on the Aliens Fireteam video game?
Well, here's a hint. Since I worked with those guys on helping them sync up canon, there are stuff that I have set up, seeded throughout the history in there, which actually ties directly into their game. So, depending on how that relationship develops, if it makes sense to do a source book for that, we will. But I think what's more likely going to happen, which has happened with everything, is that the next time we do a book where something from their stuff makes sense to put it in, it'll wind up in there. So we do a second Marine book, sure, you're probably going to see some of the new things that they've introduced in their stuff. But you got to also realize that their game takes place, I'm doing math, almost 20 years after the current timeline in the role-playing game. So there are some major changes that happen in their thing in regards to history that the catalyst of are what's happening in the Frontier War. So I tried to work with their stuff so that we could both be on the same page, and I think it worked out really well. So you're just gonna have to play the game and start seeing connections.
Let's see here. Lawbringer0315 says, in the Colonial Marines operations manual, was the original intent to allow PCs to use the MOX, or is this to be exclusively a GM tool?
This is the Berserk.
Right.
There's a couple of blurbs in there on what to do to use it, if you want to use it for players, but it's not going to be something they enjoy. I mean, the player will enjoy it, but the player character won't enjoy it. Let's just put it that way. I'm pretty sure if it got booted for some reason, I think it's still in there. But if it got booted, there was like a box text that I wrote about how to use it for players. And if that did get booted and I discover this later, I will put that on my blog to explain how you can do it.
Yes. You want to tell folks what that blog is? With the
yes, it
the
is.
URL is for that?
roguereviewer.wordpress.com. That's Rogue Reviewer, but as one word. And I've got articles on Alien in there, articles on Star Trek. I've got my canon rules for Star Trek and for Terminator in there, because I'm also writing the Terminator role-playing game. So yeah, so you can,
which we'll clarify is not a Free League product.
No, that's not a Free League product. It's just cool.
It is cool. It is cool.
But yeah, so I have a ton of content that I have been creating for that, and I keep saying I'm going to be doing posts every week, and I just, because of what's trying to get these books done in time, it hasn't happened.
Right.
So hopefully by the fall you will be seeing regular content on my blog. It's just about having the time to put it up.
Sure. It's funny how a lot of us are stuck at home, but yet time still doesn't seem to be enough. It doesn't seem to be enough hours in the day.
It seems like it's worse now.
It does.
I don't know why that is, but it is.
Omanal has a great question. How long does it take you to write a module/book?
All right, Colonial Marine book. All right, so the Colonial Marine book was plotted in, I want to say, October of 2019, right? And then Destroyer was being written. Colonial Marine book actually started getting written briefly in February of 2020, and then had to get put on hold for the rewrites for Destroyer. Got picked up again in May. Wrote from May to August. Wow. Then went on hiatus, and then went back for rewrites.
Yep.
From December through March. So
wow.
Yeah. So it's not that this happens overnight, but at the same time, I'm a freelancer. So no single product am I ever working on just that product. I'm working on that while I'm working on something for another publisher, while I'm working on something that's going to pay the bills and keep the electric running. So I can't tell you how long it would take me if all I did was one project. But the way it works as a freelancer with this stuff, you can't just work on one project straight through. You're going to have to at some point be picking up something else to keep it going. So I would say most of my projects that interweave through each other are similar to that. So you're probably looking at 9 months with a lot of spaces in between. So yeah. I've also realized this too, because there's some projects that I have done where there was nothing else. Okay. And I have been disappointed with those products when they're done, because they're not yet done, and I never had a chance to look at it and say, oh, maybe we should do this instead. I never had that chance to go back and have absorbed it later and taken a step back and say, oh, why don't we do that? With the way the Marine book especially and Destroyer especially, those two had the chances for me to say, whoa, this is better. So I think I prefer having the 9-month turnaround table. I think it's a good place to be.
Sure. JC Locke has a question that says, this book grew in size from what it was originally said. Originally, it was going to be 200 pages. What were some of the things that made it grow to the massive tome that it is now? And
one of the things is that the adventures were not a bunch of the adventure locations were written by Paul Elliott. Okay. And he wrote those while I was working on Destroyer. Okay. But what he wrote was pretty bare bones for what it needed to be, because it was not connected in any way to the campaign. So he would create a facility or a space station. Okay. And when word count was allocated, it was like, how this is a really cool location that doesn't tie in anything. How are we going to make a story that fits in that? You need to double the word count of what was just done to that. Because if you look at Destroyer, it's not just all, this is the bar, this is this. It's the overarching story that's weaving throughout that's making it. And Paul was writing locations. He wasn't writing the campaign. That was always going to be me. So we didn't allocate enough space for that, for one. And for two, I wanted to put as many vehicles and weapons and cool stuff as you could in this thing. And there's just so much to choose from the Marine source material. And even as it is, as much as I got in there, there's always someone who's like, oh, did you include that drop ship that was from that issue 4 of the Colonial Marines comic that came out? And I was like, no, but I wanted to, but no. so it's about having so much cool stuff to draw upon, and then understanding what is it going to take us to make a campaign work. And now we have that figured out, because Thomas and I and Nils had a whole bunch of meetings afterwards. That now we understand, okay, this is the way a campaign has to go. Did the Colonial Marine book become bloated anyway? Yeah, it did. Because I was like, gotta shove this in. Okay. But what we had thought was the right size for a campaign was also way too small. So we found an in-between thing that makes perfect sense for the other materials. Because at the end of the day, the one that always has the most material is the Marine stuff. So we think it's going to go. Now we have a formula set up, and I think it's going to be a lot simpler to make it work, especially since I'm not as restricted with the word count. I've noticed this too. If you tell me I only have 10,000 words, I'm probably going to write 50,000 words. If you tell me I have 20,000 words, I'll probably write 25 to 30 instead, because I feel like I have breathing room. If I feel claustrophobic, I probably go out of control. So I think we're in a good place now.
Nice. Omanel asks, do we have an ETA on a Foundry module for this campaign? I did ask Thomas about this question as well, because I know that that's a big part of the hobby right now is virtual tabletop. We don't have an ETA on a module. There is one being produced. We just don't know when it'll be available. But yes, it is our intention to have one available for the Colonial Marines Operations Manual.
Is that going to be complicated because it's a campaign instead of just a adventure? Is it going to be? Are they going to have to do that as several adventures, or you know what I'm saying?
No, it's usually just like one.
I've never used Foundry, so I don't.
Yeah, Foundry's great. Actually, there's a whole bunch of folks that love all the different types of virtual tabletops, but we found that Foundry works a little bit better for us, just because we can integrate it with our web store. Where if you buy it online on our web store, you can also buy the virtual tabletop module and just download it, and we send you a code for it. So it integrates. Yeah, so it works really well. And the feedback that we've gotten from folks that use Foundry is very, very positive, and it's been a joy to work with their team and get everything set up. So
awesome.
Do you have anything else that you would like to say, Andrew, before we sign off? We're almost at the 90-minute mark, which is about 30 minutes more than
wow.
what we kind of had planned. But I appreciate everybody that's been in the chat. I appreciate everybody that has said such nice things, and I'll let you take it from here, Andrew, if you want to address and say things to the folks that are tuned in.
Just I when I hear from you guys, I love it. It makes me feel appreciated, which is especially in this post-COVID or during COVID world where we're sitting alone at home all the time. It's it's like, oh, I'm doing something that does matter, because I'm sitting at home and I'm writing science fiction, but it's affecting people's lives and making their lives happier in the process. So I like the interaction. I've never been somebody who's like, oh, I don't want to talk to these people. I am one of these people. So please feel free to reach out to me on Facebook. Go to my Andrew E. Gaska Facebook page, not the EC Gaska. That's the author page that's under revisions. We're going to have to do something to make that nice and pretty and get people going there. But right now, just go to my personal one and ask me any questions you have about stuff. I love to chat about this stuff. And if you're lucky, I'll kill you in one of the books.
Nice. And let me, and I'll just reiterate that the Colonial Marines Operations Manual is still available for pre-order. So if you haven't placed your pre-order, you can go to alien-rpg.com and you can place the pre-order, and you'll get the book shipped to you before it hits retail on the retail release. And the cool thing about the pre-order is that you'll get an exclusive art book PDF along with it. I think that's scheduled to go out here a little bit later, but you will get the PDF of the Colonial Marines Operations Manual fairly after you place the pre-order. So still time for that. But if you are waiting, I would say get it in fairly quickly, because we don't know how long that window is going to be open, and I would assume that the official retail release is coming shortly. So.
And buying it direct like that, not only does it get you the PDF beforehand, but it does get you, in fact, the PDF, which if you buy it in a retail store, I don't think that always...
They do have one thing I will say about Free League is that we do support the bits and mortar. So if you do purchase it from your friendly local game store, if they're part of the bits and mortar program, you do have access to they'll give you the code for the PDF.
So you can get it there.
But you can get it. Yes, absolutely.
Awesome.
So either way, I will say, after looking over the PDF, I think, as much as I like the other supplements that you've put out, Andrew, I think this is a must-have book if you have the core rule book. I think with the amount of content in it, with everything that all the lore and the source material, I think this is a must-buy when you have the core rule book. So
what we want these campaign books to be is, aside from a big adventure, we want them to be, we're going into depth on the stuff that we touched about in the core book. So it is an expanded core book in each case. That's how we want it to be. So I'm glad you think so, and I'm glad that we've gotten so much positive feedback already. So.
Yes, thank you everyone for being patient and all the nice words that everybody's saying. I will remind folks that if you have watched all this way, thank you so much. Please hit that subscribe button. Hit that little bell notification. We love our YouTube community here at Free League Publishing, and this is one way that we can kind of connect with everybody since we can't really get out and meet people face to face. We've been able to really kind of boost this channel up quite a bit and be able to interact with everybody, and it's just been a fun evening of chatting. And if you are a fan of the Alien RPG, please hit that like button. Share this video with any of friends that that love the RPGs that we put out. And yeah, thank you so much. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just check out the links are in the description, and they're on there on the screen as well. And you'll be notified every single time we make a new announcement. Drew, thank you as always, my friend.
Yep.
We'll have to do this again soon.
We will. We always do.
Heart of Darkness. Do we have any kind of? Can you kind of? Is it coming out later this year, maybe, or do we have any kind of?
It's coming this year.
Is it okay? So be on the lookout for that. Maybe we'll have you back on one for that.
I can't tell you about if the other one's coming this year yet or not, but unless something drastic happens, like I write 3 times the amount of material that's needed. So it's coming 2 years from now.
Oh no.
No, I got this one. All right.
All right, folks. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful evening. Be safe, be well, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much.
Be seeing you.